It's 2006. Before he became one of the biggest counterfeiters in the world, Frank Bourassa sat inside a jail cell in Quebec. He wasn't a gangster or a murderer, but that night it didn't matter. He had walked straight into something brutal, something deadly. He was sentenced to 3 months for possession of marijuana, but that meant nothing compared to the real punishment, reliving the night he got arrested. It was a drug deal, a big one. 10 guys, all armed, standing around like something straight out of a movie. A suitcase hit the table. Someone popped it open. Pure cocaine, packed tight. Across from it, another suitcase slid forward. This had cash, stacks of it. It looked like $1 million deal. No one moved until someone did. And then silence. Bodies were down. The deal had gone to hell. But the cash was still sitting there, untouched. Frank stepped forward. He flipped the suitcase open and just stared. 20,000, maybe 30. That's it. This couldn't be real. All that chaos, the guns, the risks, people dying. For what? Just 20 grands? It hit him like a slap to the face. This was pure madness. Then sirens. Red and blue lights filled the warehouse. The doors burst open. Police swarmed in. Frank didn't move. What was the point? It was already over. Now sitting in a cold jail cell, he thought about it again. Why do people go through all this? Take such big risks? What's the end goal of all this madness? To make money. So he said to himself, why not cut across all this shit? I'll literally make my own money. I always wanted to make a video on this. This is an unbelievable story. A man printed 250 million US dollars in fake cash. So perfect that the experts couldn't tell the difference. And the best part was, after all this, Frank walked away free. But how does one become that bold, that fearless? Most criminals are shaped by their past, adverse childhood influences, antisocial behavior, or social learning from bad influences. But surprisingly, Frank had none of that. He was born on October 23, 1971 and raised by good law-abiding parents. There was no childhood-induced trauma or any kind of system that failed him as a kid. Nothing that would explain what he became when he grew up. He was simply bored. When other kids were studying and trying to build a future, Frank was studying what's legal and illegal. And before long, he was ready to cross it. At 7th grade, when Frank was about 12 years old, he saw his classmates making easy money by stealing electronics and clothes. This idea of fast cash was tempting. He jumped in and started making about a couple of $100s a week. And at age 15, he was expelled from school. And at age 16, he got into it completely. He started flipping cars. By his 20s, Frank had made good amount of money. He wanted to leave his past behind and start a crime-free life. So using the money he made, he set up a factory that manufactured brake pads for cars. It was successful, but Frank had to work 20 hours a day. His hair started falling off, multiple hospital visits and vitamin deficiencies, and stress led to panic attacks. So realizing that his health was at risk, he sold the factory and took a couple of years break. But no matter what he did, the drive to become rich never left him. Back in Canada, he made a choice. He would never make money through legal means again. It was more stressful than dealing with criminals. He got back to crime again, and this time it was growing and selling marijuana. It was a booming market in Canada. It went well initially, but in 2006, that single deal which sentenced him to 3 months in prison changed everything.
Those dealing coke and stuff like that, they would do transaction for $20,000, $30,000. They'd be 10 guys with machine guns and get a hold of yourself. It's 20 grand and to money in the end. Why not just simply cut across?
That is when Frank decided to counterfeit American $20 bills. But why US dollars? Because it is accepted worldwide. And American currency was still printed on paper, unlike Canada's polymer. And 20s was also a smart choice, because a $100 bill would get a second look. 20s would raise less suspicion. Frank started researching. Every detail on this note had to be perfect. One mistake would mean spending the rest of the life behind bars. But what was surprising was he did not find this information on some dark corner of the internet. It was right there, on government website. He did not have to decode anything complicated at all. The blueprint to print money was literally public information. This is a $20 bill. Let me show it to you up close. Here. There are many security features on this bill. The first one is pretty obvious. The crispiness of the paper. It's not a regular paper. It's cotton linen blend. Let me show it to you. And then there's the raised printing. You can actually feel the texture when you rub your thumb on Andrew Jackson's shoulder. This strip doesn't glow when exposed to normal light, but it does when exposed to UV. And then there's the color shifting ink. Notice how the color changes from copper to green. That's a security feature. There is also a small security strip that reads USA 20. And the watermark, it's right here. You see Andrew Jackson's face appearing when you backlight it. Every single one of these details had to be perfect. But the real challenge was not even about the ink or the design. It was about paper. The paper had to be exactly 75% cotton and 25% linen, with the same watermark of Andrew Jackson used on the real $20 bill. At the fall of 2008, Frank began reaching out to paper mills on Europe and Asia. For this, he created a fake identity. Thomas More. More was an investment banker from the US, and his company, Keystone Investment and Trading, needed a special kind of paper. Their goal was to print proprietary bonds. It was all a lie, but a believable one. At first, the Swiss paper mills were skeptical, and rightfully so. But Frank didn't give up. He kept pushing for months with different aliases. He contacted them through emails, with fake names and fake companies. Because deep down he knew, one recorded phone call could ruin everything. In January 2009, he became Jackson Maxwell. Finally a name that worked. One company agreed to his request. Not only did they agree to make the paper, but also they agreed to his modifications. Frank's boldest request was he asked them to include a security strip that read USA 20. And the most shocking part was, people who made the paper had no idea who Andrew Jackson was. They didn't even question the watermark. Now came the riskiest part, getting that paper to his printing location without getting caught. Frank trusted no one. No one he hired knew the full plan. This helped him greatly, as you'll see later in the video. Step 1 was he hired a driver to pick up that shipment. When it arrived at the airport, Frank didn't touch it. He spent 3 days watching it from a distance, scanning for any signs of law enforcement. When that was clear, he rented a box truck and got that paper moving. Step 2 was making sure he wasn't being followed. He had another guy tail the truck. As the first truck hit the highway on ramp, where traffic naturally increased, Frank's second car pulled a little trick. It broke down, blocking traffic for about 20 minutes. By the time the road cleared, the truck was long gone. Step 3 was playing it safe. The truck was parked in a secluded lot and left under surveillance for another 3 days, just in case anyone was onto them. When that was clear, we came to step 4, which was the final move. Frank switched the cargo to another truck, rented a new driver, and even transferred the paper to fresh pallets, just in case there were any tracking devices. The destination was a garage in a farm. The farmer who gave it to rent probably knew something shady was going on, but he never asked questions, because Frank paid him heavily, all in cash. Now he had the paper. His next obstacle was to get a money printer, and these printers were expensive. But Frank had illicit savings. He managed to get a 4-color Heidelberg offset printer for $125,000, and he had earlier spent around $50,000 on paper materials. So in total, this operation costed him around $325,000 Canadian dollars. And just like that, Frank was ready. For the next 5 months, the machine roared, printing $100 per second. Andrew Jackson's face stared right back at him on midair in every note. For Frank, this was more than money. It was art. And he had created a masterpiece.